The full horror of what has happened in the United States, the utter carnage and terror, President Bush in this terror. Security has been increased across the full range of government buildings and military premises. All our defense facilities around the world have been moved to high alert. We are in close touch with the US and are cooperating with them on issues of security. All relevant ministers remain in communication, and the committee, the Civil Contingencies Committee, will meet again. As I said earlier, this mass terrorism is the new evil in our world. The people who perpetrate it have no regard whatever to defeat it and eradicate it. A battle between the United States of America and terrorism. Stand shoulder to shoulder with our American friends, and we, like them, all this evil is driven.
There are three parts, all equally important to the operation in which we're engaged: military, diplomatic, and humanitarian. The military action we are taking will be targeted against places we know to be involved in the Al-Qaeda network of terror or against the military apparatus of the Taliban. This military plan has been put together mindful of our determination to do all we humanly can to avoid civilian casualty, to eradicate Osama bin Laden's network of terror, and to take action against the Taliban regime that is sponsoring him. As to the precise British involvement, I can confirm that last Wednesday, the United States government made a specific request that a number of UK military assets be used in the operation which has now begun, and I gave authority for these assets to be deployed. The world understands that whilst, of course, there are dangers in acting, the dangers of inaction are far, far greater. The threat of further such outrages, the threat to our economies, the threat to the stability of the world. On the humanitarian front, we are assembling a coalition of support for refugees in and outside Afghanistan, which is as vital as the military coalition. This, of course, is a moment of the utmost gravity for the world. None of the leaders involved in this action want war. None of our nations want it. We are a peaceful people. But we know that sometimes, to safeguard peace, we have to fight. So we will act. And our determination in acting is total. We will not let up or rest until our objectives are met in full.
Well, I don't think we've ever contemplated this simply being done by air power alone. I mean, we've always said that there will be a number of phases to this operation, and so what is unfolding is exactly what has been planned. I don't want to say any more about the precise nature of our operations, but our objectives remain as they've been: to shut down the terrorist network, to remove the Taliban regime if they are succoring and helping the Al-Qaeda terrorist network, which they are doing. This is a testing time. In fact, I believe that the next few weeks will be the most testing time. But we are on course, on track to achieve the goals that we set out. I want to offer him our full support and friendship and partnership in establishing this interim government in Afghanistan, in setting Afghanistan on a different path for the future. And I would like to say to him that the commitment that the international community has to the reconstruction of Afghanistan is there and there for the long term. Afghanistan was a failed state. It was a state exporting terrorism around the world. It was a state oppressing its people in the most violent, terrible way. I was really heartened when he told me that people regarded the action that had been taken here, the military action, as a source of liberation for people here. Indeed. And that there is now the real prospect of a stable and prosperous future for the people here.
If we think back to the days following the terrible events of the 11th of September, people then were very skeptical as to whether action in Afghanistan could be successful. Some people warned that it would lead to a humanitarian disaster,
a military disaster, a political disaster. I think some months on, we are able to see that as a result of the strength of the international coalition, and I pay tribute to President Musharraf's role in that, as a result of that international coalition, we have managed to achieve more than people, I think, could possibly have thought or dreamt of a few months ago. It is vital that we as an international community remember the commitment that we have given to people there. Now again, I think many people were worried whether, as the Taliban regime were put out of power, would Afghan people be pleased at that event or not? I think, again, it is very, very clear from the joy that many people in Afghanistan have evidenced day after day after day that theirs has been a liberation from that regime. But they know that that is the first step. The second step is to put in place that stability for the long term. And that's why the international community has got to remain committed, and committed to helping Afghanistan become, as I say, a stable partner in the region and a proper member of the international community. I would like, in particular, obviously, to pay tribute not just to the leadership of the United States in the international coalition, in the military action that has been taken, but also pay tribute to our own British Armed Forces and to the other armed forces now part of the International Security Assistance Force. That, again, is part of our demonstration of the commitment we have to people in Afghanistan and to the country itself. The support of Pakistan and of India for the international coalition.
Recommit ourselves, and I am sure I speak on behalf of the whole of the international community supporting you, to say that we will be with you in this endeavor. Our commitment remains that whatever challenges, whether of security or reconstruction or development, we shall be up to meeting those challenges with you. We came to Afghanistan because it was obvious that the problem in Afghanistan had become a problem for the world. We have got to stay committed for as long as it takes for our own security, not just for the sake of the Afghan people. And the second thing is that, yes, the Taliban have got time, but the Afghan people have also got time. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to be intimidated out of a better future, provided they have the support and the vision that is there, that the President's outlined, and that we will support. So their game of waiting is a game that will not succeed. You know, if we show the will, and if together we and the Afghan people show that reconstruction and development and economic and social progress can happen as a result of our cooperation and partnership. And the alternative is that we go back to an Afghanistan that wasn't just misery for its people here, but ended up with violence and death being exported around the world. And that's not an alternative any of us should contemplate. You know, you say about the Taliban, look, I think it's important to realize that for the Taliban and for Al-Qaeda and those organizations that are connected with them worldwide, that basically share their ideology and ideas, I don't think we should be surprised that they fight back. This is, after all, for them to have been ousted from the government of Afghanistan was a major defeat. Of course, they will try to get back in. They will try to use links with the drugs trade, indeed, to do that. But as I say sometimes when people put to me, because I think, you know, there's challenging news here and there's good news here, difficult news and good news. But when people put the difficult news to me back home, I often say, if your enemy is fighting you, and they are our enemy, then what's your response? Your response should be to fight them back, even harder and with more determination. And so I think one very good message that was given to the Taliban in the Helmand province in particular over the last few months is that we are also prepared to fight. because we believe in what we believe in. Now, I think that going forward, obviously, big challenge is the narcotics trade, because it's something that was introduced into the country, that the Taliban actually exploited, and it is going to take us time. On the other hand, as I think the President can give better details of than me, there are examples of provinces where there's been a sharp reduction. Now, as I understand it, that's often been when there's been also a powerful economic and reconstruction motive put in order to encourage people to shift into something better.
Take any problem that our country, Britain, wants solving. Global terrorism, assuming you don't believe that but for George Bush it wouldn't exist.
There are some, I think, reasonably optimistic signs that certainly some of our colleagues recognise the importance of the collective effort in Afghanistan, because it's of huge importance to the security of European countries, as well as to the wider world. And you know, obviously these have been informal discussions I've had, but I've tried to impress upon people the need to make the maximum collective effort. And I think it is understood that what is happening in Afghanistan is of fundamental importance to all of us.
Biden has done since becoming president. I mean, I have a great respect and admiration for him as a person. And I understand he inherited this agreement of February 2020, which was very difficult. And I also understand if you're a political leader, you're under political pressure, people want the engagement to end. But we've got to realize we were in a situation where our engagement was dramatically different from where it was 10 years ago, never mind 20 years ago, and where we could have managed the situation. And the problem with what's happened now, and this is my worry, is that it's not just about the Afghan people and our obligation to them. And obviously, you know, you feel, I mean, distressed when you see people realizing what they're going to lose as a result of the Taliban coming back into power. But it's not just about the Afghan people, it's about us and our security. Because you've now got this group back in charge of Afghanistan. They will give protection and succor to Al-Qaeda. You've got ISIS already in the country trying to operate at the same time. You know, you look around the world and the only people really cheering this decision are the people hostile to Western interests. We in the West have got to decide, is this radical Islamist threat a threat that we think warrants a strategic long-term commitment by us to defeat it? Now, I happen to think that it is. If we don't think that, that's fine. But I'm looking around the world today and, you know, I'm just seeing that this Islamist threat is still there. These groups are still proliferating. There are many different parts of the world getting destabilized by them. And I personally think we have an interest, Britain, the United States, our allies, in pushing back hard against this threat. We had a manageable situation, we could have carried on managing it and helping the country. But it's also because in the end, and as I say this despite I've got a huge respect for Joe Biden as a president and as a person, a policy can't be decided by a slogan. It's got to be decided on the basis of a strategy. And that's a different thing. And that's really the purpose of what I was saying.